Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my review of episodes 7 and 8 of The Boys. And yes, I'm reviewing both of the final two episodes of season 1 at the same time. And it's the same reason I would react to a series like the final two episodes at the same time. It's just like they kind of go together almost in a perfect way to where it's like, yeah, it just feels right to do both of them at once. Plus, when I was watching last night after I finished episode 7, it's like, I can't stop here. I have to continue. So I just ended up watching both. And so it's like, okay, we can review both together. Because otherwise I might get confused and it's like, oh, this happened in this episode, but no, it actually happened in this episode. Sometimes that can happen. You guys know that with some of my longer reaction videos to back when I had 4 episodes for One Piece at a time. I could get mixed up a little bit sometimes. And I'm gonna try to get all of the events that I can remember for this as much as I can get. But I know I'm probably gonna miss something. So if I miss something that you want to know about or want to hear my thoughts on or whatever, feel free to ask down in the comments below. Um, so this was a very good season finale, and it definitely felt like a season finale. But at the same time, there's one thing I'm confused about. And I'm just going to say, by the way, spoilers obviously start here. Um, so I'm going to be talking about the big stuff that happened as always with these episodes. So if you haven't seen them and don't want to be spoiled, I would suggest clicking off until you do see them. Just to say, because I will be talking about spoilers. So, back to what I was saying though. There's one thing I was a little confused about. So, I had obviously heard of The Boys prior to watching it, and I've heard people talk about it even after I started watching it, I've heard people talking about it. And one of the big things I've heard is that at the end of season 1, Homelander apparently does something just so evil and bad that it's just kind of unbelievable. And people were just shocked and taken aback by how bad it was. Um, where? When did he do this? I watched these 2 episodes. It's like nothing he did in these 2 episodes was one surprising. Nothing he did was worse than other stuff he's actually done in previous episodes, like with the plane and everybody on it. That was honestly the worst thing we've seen him do. Um, the entire plane incident was definitely the worst thing we've seen him do so far. And it's like I'm not saying that what he did in the finale wasn't bad. It was definitely bad. It was horrifying. But compared to what he's done throughout the rest of the season, compared to just how his character has been, it's like you really think that was like that big comparatively. So what happened? And I know I'm kind of getting towards the end before I get to the earlier stuff, but just to talk about this real quick because this is at the top of my mind. What happened is that after a hostage situation where Billy Butcher has taken Madeline Stillwell, the one of the people in charge at Vought, hostage, we see Homelander, who had found out something about himself, which I'll get into later, kill her. This character who had been a strong presence throughout this entire season, who had been kind of controlling things behind the scenes, especially Homelander himself, who has had a weird relationship with Homelander, which has been sexual and also very weirdly mother child like, which is, considering it's also sexual, is really weird. I mean, I guess it's kind of like role play, but I don't think it kind of came across that way, honestly. But either way, the point is, he kills her because she lied to him and kept information from him that he deemed more important than her. And the way he kills her is excessively gruesome. In fact, I'd say it's the most gruesome kill we've seen in this series so far. And we've seen him use his heat vision before. It's kind of a go to for him. But seeing him use it to bore holes in through her eyes like that, I don't know what it is about that, but just the idea of that has always freaked me the hell out. And admittedly, like, I think the first time I've ever actually seen it in action was in Brightburn, the movie Brightburn, which is basically an evil Superman story itself. And that happens in that movie. And it's like, when that happened in that film, that freaked me the hell out because just the idea of that, like, I thought about that prior, but the idea of like a super powered person like this using their laser vision into the eyes of another person and burning out their skull from the inside is horrific. It's absolutely horrific. And they don't hold back either in this. Like, we know they don't hold back. This is pretty gruesome. It's a pretty gruesome show. So when we see it actually happen and we see like the cavernous eye sockets and everything afterwards, it's like, holy shit. It's horrifying. It just is. But now that I've talked about that, um, I do want to go back through the other stuff of these episodes because there's quite a bit that happened. So last time we found out that Mesmer had been giving information to, um, God, what's his face? Homelander. I just said his name earlier too. He'd been giving information to Homelander about the boys, and so we kind of see the after effects of that through these episodes. Homelander knows about them, but he doesn't seem to reveal all of that information to everyone, and definitely not to Vought in any official capacity. He brings together the seven and confronts um, Starlight about Huey being one of them, but that's all he does. He doesn't bring up any of the others. So I'm wondering, is he like actively choosing to keep them hidden and just go after them himself? Because that would, I feel, would be a very much a thing he would do. But either way, so yeah, he confronts all of the remaining members of the Seven there, talking about all of this and how Huey killed um, Translucent. But he also seems to believe it wasn't actually Huey and that Huey just helped and everything. And it's like he found out who Butcher is and knows exactly who he is because we see this flashback where it's like we see Butcher and his wife Becca when they're like before Becca's disappearance and everything, and we find out all this information. These episodes are chock full of information about that, which I like that throughout the season we've gotten more and more progressively about Butcher's situation. But shit starts going down, and they start coming after the boys and everything, and Huey is called by A Train and has to save his father and everything while A Train is fucking high as a kite on Compound V. And it's basically everything's just going to shit really quickly. There is this cute scene though, like intermingled in that, where the female Kimiko is giving herself a makeover in the bathroom. Is she's like straightening her hair and everything, trying on some nail polish and all. and it's really freaking cute, and it's like I really just enjoy her character, even though she doesn't speak and everything. Also, it looked like she was trying to speak, so I'm thinking it's not that she doesn't have the ability; it's maybe she never learned, or maybe there's some other like traumatic reason for it. But either way, she she's really grown on me, even though again she doesn't say anything or whatnot. She doesn't even emote very well a lot of the time. I like what they're doing with her character nonetheless. They're still writing her well, and her relationship with Frenchie is just fantastic. And it helps both of their characters to grow, and I love it. So we see them get captured, all except Billy, who was not there at the moment, and Huey, who I actually think also wasn't there at the moment. Um, so they have to go rescue them, and Butcher doesn't want to do it. He wants to go after Homelander instead. And he even tries making these excuses, saying, oh, they would want us to do this to continue with the mission and everything. But in actuality, like, no, that's not the case. And Huey starts arguing with him, and basically they break up at that point. Huey decides to go his own way and save. And I don't mean like romantic breakup, by the way. I mean like the boys kind of have broken up at that point. Um, Huey goes to save the others while Butcher goes to get his revenge. Um, and all of this happened because the CIA, who Butcher called out to and made a deal with, ended up getting fucked over by Vought as well once a super terrorist came into play. And I'm watching this and everything when the super terrorist is involved, and it's like, that's very convenient. And which they even say in the episode. And it's like my mind's putting it together. It's like Vought is making super terrorists, and they happen to get this out like right when Stillwell is being interrogated by the deputy director of the CIA. And it's like, yeah, this is very obvious. And then later we find out it's not. Um, with this storyline, we find out it was actually Homelander who did it, and that he did it to impress Stillwell, but also to help their entire mission of getting supers in the military. So, yeah, there's that. Because by the line of thought, it's like if these terrorists have supers, the only thing that can combat them would be to have supers in the military. And I get the logic behind it. Like there is a logic behind it, but at the same time, it's like that's so manipulative and fucked up. Um, so yeah, everything just starts going wrong. Since Starlight found out about Huey and everything, she's ignoring him at first, and they meet and they argue, and they're kind of breaking up, even though they actually are really like have been really together now. And eventually, though, Butcher does find out through talking with them that it wasn't Starlight who gave them up and is the reason why they're now being burned and hunted by Vought and everything, but that it was actually Mesmer. So he goes after Mesmer, and we see him kill Mesmer. And it was it was gruesome enough, and it was sad, but I think it was more. I think it was more just unnecessary. Like not for the show. I mean, like for the characters and everything. Like in series, it was unnecessary because like Butcher like is just completely out for vengeance, and he's been like this for so long that anytime anyone betrays him, he just instantly becomes super vengeful against them. So when Mesmer did this, it's like he was out for blood. He was always going to kill him. There was nothing Mesmer could say or do that would change that. And it just feels like he didn't need to do this. Because yes, Mesmer betrayed them. Mesmer gave the information to Homelander that is now causing them to be hunted down. But if he had kept Mesmer as a prisoner, he could have possibly used him somehow. I don't know. I just feel like there's more opportunity if they kept him as a prisoner. Because if they kept him as a prisoner and then ended up catching someone else, they could find out a lot of big information. Just think about it. They really could. Even if it's only a temporary thing. But I don't know. It's just I don't think he necessarily deserved to die for that. Um, yes, well, he did put everyone in danger, but still, it's just, especially the way he was killed. Butcher smashing his face repeatedly into the sink and everything. It's it's pretty vicious. And again, I know it's Butcher, but still, I just feel like he could have handled that better, and I think that's the point, obviously. But I don't know. That was kind of going through my head while I was watching that. It's I just feel like he could have handled this better. I feel like that he could have done this better. He didn't need to do it this way. And that was going through my head while I was watching it. It's I get that that's probably the point. I do understand that. It's just, yeah. Um. So we find out, like I said, there was the flashback of Butcher and his wife before her disappearance and all. We find out more about her. She was actually working for Vought. They both had met Homelander at this event Vought was holding, and Homelander ended up recruiting her to work his social media. Because you know how in real life, not all celebrities actually run their own social media, their own Twitters or Facebook pages or whatnot. How a lot of them will have a social media manager to actually put things out for them. Of course, they'll still tell that person what to put down or whatnot. A lot of the time, and there are plenty of celebrities who do run their own social media, but there's also quite a lot that don't. So it's kind of the same here. We find out he's having her he's having Becca run his social media for him since he's out being a hero, as he basically puts it. And he asks her to help him more with that in the future. We see some footage where they had gone into a locked room for a few hours, and she came out, and it's very obvious what happened. This is when he raped her and everything, and that this was right before she also disappeared. Um, so it's making it even worse and worse than ever. And this it was at this time too that Homelander was with Maeve. So it's not only did he rape someone, which obviously is the worst crime here, but he also cheated on Maeve doing so. And it's just just can we admit that Homelander just fucking sucks? And again, I know that's the point, but it's I mean, rape alone is just one of the worst things you can do. Easily, one of the worst crimes a person can commit is to rape someone. And so it's just the fact that he did that is enough to honestly brand him as an absolute 100% piece of shit. And obviously the same for the Deep, who also is in these episodes. The Deep has been relocated to Sandusky, Ohio. And yes, they do mention that Cedar Point is there. They do bring that up. Basically, as his sabbatical from the Seven, he's being sent there to just kind of waited out basically. While there, he's just trying to kind of survive. He gets this daily allowance on this card that he can use to buy snacks and food and stuff. But otherwise, he's just kind of keeping out of the spotlight. He's not doing any hero work. He's not doing anything. And eventually, it drives him insane. Just being completely turned away like that, being completely just pushed out into oblivion, kind of like this town that he basically sees as this hick town, basically, for whatever reason. And he's kind of driven insane to the point where he he shaves his head randomly in just kind of like this fit of aggression slash sorrow, and he's just freaking out constantly and everything. It's also during this we see that he has these gills on his torso. Um, there's even this one woman who he brings back to his apartment and proceeds to get frisky with, but then she weirdly enough starts wanting to play with his gills, and she starts fingering them, and it's really fucking weird, and at the same time it's also hurting him, which I mean, I guess fair enough, but he's trying to get her to stop, but she's being very aggressive and saying like no. And it's like at first I'm thinking like, okay, is she like getting revenge on behalf of Starlight? Is that what's going on here? Because obviously Starlight's entire thing was public and everything, and it was made public that it was the Deep as well. So it's like, is that what's going on here? But it never goes there. And so I'm thinking it's just like, no, I think she's just a very dominant person, like very dominant person. Which I mean, for sex is fair, but there has to be consent there too. You can't just be super dominant against someone and just expect them to consent to it automatically. They have to say so. And usually there's other safety precautions in place in case someone ends up accidentally hurting someone, like safe words and all that. Um, it's just, I feel like she was going a little far there, but honestly, I can't say he doesn't deserve it because, again, he raped Starlight, so bitch very much deserves it. Um, though still, the fingering of the that's just weird. That's really fucking weird. Um, but yeah, kind of just as I said before, everything has gone to shit. Everyone's like getting captured and stuff, and Huey tries to get help in saving his friends from Vought and everything by going to Starlight again and trying to explain more to her. He even ends up telling her about the fact that Compound V is what made her a super in the first place, that she wasn't born with these powers. And so she ends up going to her mother to confront her about it and finds out, yeah, it's true. Vought paid for all the medical expenses and whatnot, and she was given Compound V and everything. And it's made very clear the mother was only doing it for herself, her own goals, her own dreams. It's literally one of those cases where the parents are literally forcing their dreams on their children. Except in this case, she actually had this multi-million dollar company drug her child and turn her into a superhero, a superpowered being just to accomplish that goal. And it's like, that's really fucked up. And so Starlight storms out of the house and everything. And like, I don't blame her. It's like, honestly, that mother would lose any sort of trust or any sort of rights at seeing her again, honestly. Um, Meanwhile, A Train is a continued thorn in Huey's side during these episodes. Starlight does end up coming to his rescue after he saves the others and everything. So everyone else gets out, everyone's freed, but he stays behind with to face A Train, and Starlight comes in and helps him and everything, and it's yeah. And A Train actually has a little kind of storyline that's going in with this too, because of all of the compound V he's been using. We actually see that he's having heart troubles. His brother mentions it. He mentions that A Train's been having these heart troubles lately, and that he's pushing himself too hard, um, to continue to try to be the fastest man and everything. And that comes to a head when, during the fight with Huey and everything, A Train has a heart attack, which it's like it was very well built up to and very well informed by everything that had been said and going on beforehand. And he has a heart attack, and Huey doesn't want to leave him. Despite everything, Huey does want to save him and wants Starlight to call for an ambulance and everything, because Huey's just a good person. It's like A Train does not deserve it. Even Starlight's basically like, we could just leave him. No one would know. Even Starlight, who's normally a pretty good person too, is just like, we could just go. But he's like, no, and everything. But she ends up calling it in and pushing him to leave. And it's clear that they've kind of mended their relationship a bit, but that it's not necessarily fully healed yet. There's still a lot of issues with it for sure. Um, and I'm hoping we get plenty more of that in season two and onward. Just get more in depth with it all. Um, but yeah, so there's that entire plot line. And then there's a couple characters we actually get to meet for the first time, who, mind you, I knew were in this, but I didn't know like how they were introduced. I didn't know when they were introduced. I was actually starting to think like, oh, they're probably not going to be introduced until season two or whatnot. Um, Rather, I know the actors, and I didn't know like who their characters were or anything. I just knew that they were in this and that they would be appearing at some point. And I want to get their names and all right, so give me just a second here. I have the page up. Um, bu- 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 There's one of them. I'll find it. Ah, there we go. Okay. So, oh, I didn't even realize that was his name. That's hilarious. Um, so the first one we meet is the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Robert Singer, played by Jim Beaver, and that is funny as hell. Because in Supernatural, Jim Beaver played Bobby Singer, which is, the character was named after one of the crew, one of the people who made Supernatural. And so Jim Beaver is now also playing another character named Bob Singer or Robert Singer. And it's just like, that's really funny. That's just really funny to me. And he does a great job in the little bit we see of him in this. Um, just going over just some simple stuff and talking. I believe he was talking to Madeline Stillwell about things going on, in regards to everything that's been happening. But the other one I want to focus a little more on here is Stan Edgar. Now, we had heard about Mr. Edgar before, but now we finally get to meet him. Mr. Edgar is the CEO of Vault. He is even above Stillwell. He's kind of in charge of everything. And he is played by Giancarlo Esposito. And it's just like, I knew he was in this, and I was waiting to see him appear. And again, I was thinking as we were getting further and further into this season that it's like, oh, he's probably not going to be until season two, isn't he? And he's probably still going to be in season two. It's just he debuted here, and it's like for those who don't know by his name, he was Gus Fring in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. He's also the voice of Lex Luthor in the Harley Quinn series, which we are reacting to right now on the channel, um, and various other roles here and there. He's a phenomenal actor. He's a phenomenal villain actor, especially like just his role as Gus, like was amazing in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And so seeing him here as kind of like this shady CEO of a really shady company, it's like, oh yeah, no, this is a good role for him. And it's a big role too, because The Boys is it's a pretty big series. Like people really do know this series. It's gotten pretty big. It has a huge following. So it's like this is a pretty large role for him. I don't know if I would say it's as big as Breaking Bad. Probably not, honestly. Um, but still, I think for sure that he was definitely the right choice. We get to see a bit of conversation with him where he's basically telling Stillwell, it's like, I like what you've been doing. You're gonna move up to the same floor as me, and he's basically hinting that he's going to train her to be his replacement eventually. Though obviously that's not going to happen now that she's dead, but still, it's like I we had heard about Mr. Edgar. He had been built up earlier on in this season. I didn't know that's who Giancarlo Esposito was going to play. It didn't click in my head that that's who he could be. I didn't know who he was going to be. I didn't know anything about his character. I just knew he was in this. So I'm very excited about that though because again I love him as an actor. It's just it's a phenomenal choice. Um, but the big thing I want to talk about, and this is probably one of the last things we're going to talk about, if not the last, is Homelander's part of this story. So Homelander's kind of been questioning a lot of things lately and trying to find out more. After he realizes who Butcher is, he starts looking into him and finds out about Becca. He remembers who Becca is, and he starts looking into this further. He's wanting to find out what happened. He brings up that she just kind of disappeared, and not even he knows what happened to her. And it's like, oh, that actually is important because Butcher presumed it was probably him who killed her. But we find out here, no. Which means that Butcher's only other guess is that she killed herself, but it's still Homelander's fault for raping her and everything. Um but here we find out he didn't do it and he's trying to figure out what did happen. So he talks to Stillwell about it. She doesn't really give him too much of any real answers. So he ends up going to a former scientist who worked with Vought. And I believe it's one of the scientists who was working with him when he was a little baby as well, that we saw in the flashbacks. Um, but he reveals that she had become pregnant. Or actually, I think it was Stillwell who first revealed it. I think. One of them did. But that Becca had become pregnant with Homelander's child after he raped her, which shouldn't have been possible according to them. Because according to them, it's like, I guess those who were created with Compound V can't have children or something. It's not gone too much into detail with, but yeah. So she was she was impregnated and the baby was growing way too fast and it seemed to be showing even signs of having powers. So Vought had taken her in, and the birth was extremely horrific and just deadly. There's a lot of blood, like a lot of blood. And they were declared dead, both her and the baby. And so Homelander talks to Stillwell about it, and he's still trying to figure things out. And so later on, when Stillwell is captured by Butcher and everything, he and Homelander comes in. He's talking to her and telling her something didn't quite add up with what you said and with what he said. So I went back to see him and get the real truth. And he doesn't reveal what it is or anything, but he makes it clear that he's lost all faith in Stillwell at this point, and that's why he kills her. At this point, Billy, seeing that there's nothing left, that his only leverage against Homelander is gone, he just chooses to blow shit up anyway because he has like these explosives strapped around her, and he's holding the trigger. He lets it go and decides to just, presumably, just decides to die with Homelander. But he then wakes up. He's outside this house. This kid comes out. Homelander starts talking to him, and then Becca comes out. And it's made clear that Becca and the baby did not die. That's the real truth that Homelander found out from the other guy. And Butcher is there too because Homelander brought him from the house and everything, and so it's like, so he and Becca get to see each other for the first time in 8 years, and it's like that's basically where it ends. And it's like, oh, you're just gonna end on that? You're gonna end on that big of a moment? Kudos. I gotta give massive credit. As I've said before, I like cliffhangers. I think it actually helps build anticipation for a show. So I really like that they did that. Um, I think it was a really fantastic way to end off the season. Um, so yeah, this was a very, very heavy, very lore and action packed finale between these two episodes that really just delved heavily into a lot of the heavier stuff of this series. And so, and it leaves a lot of questions in the end. Was Stillwell dead? Who's going to take over her spot in Vought? What's going to happen with the military bill they were trying to push through? That, according to Mr. Edgar, was pretty much confirmed at that point. What's going to happen with the super terrorists that we find out Homelander created instead of Vought, which was actually a big surprise. I really didn't expect that. I really thought it was Vought. But no, Homelander did it just to impress his mommy. And it's just like, well, what now? There's a lot of questions, but how's Butcher gonna react with all of this? Are the boys gonna just stay broken up, or how are they gonna get back to? I assume they're gonna get back together. And it's just like so many other questions. There's also this other character who's introduced, who also was talked about prior. I can't think of her name for the life of me right now. Let me see if I can find it here. Bu- 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 Trying to see. Grace Mallory. Yes, we had heard about Mallory before and the death of her grandchildren and everything during a previous engagement with the heroes and Vought and everything. And so now we actually get to meet Mallory and get to like just kind of see a little more of her and see what she's actually like and find out that she basically started the boys in the first place. I'm trying to see here. There we go. Layla Robbins is the actress who plays her, and I feel she looked familiar, and I couldn't place it. And she's been in. It looks like she's been in a couple things I know, such as Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Um, but not necessarily too much. Um, but yeah, either way. She seems like she's used to be quite a badass, but is now just kind of deflated and everything by everything that happened. And she even warns Huey to basically get out before it's too late, which definitely leads to him leaving Butcher later on. Um, so we finally get to see her, finally get to find out a little more about her and everything. And it's insane. Um, with the ending with Becca and everything, I assume she was under some kind of witness protection thing because she had Homelander's child. I assume it was something related to that. I guess we'll find out. And that's actually what I'm going to really end on here. Um, I stated this last time, I believe, but I'm going to talk about it again here. We are going to be reacting to The Boys for seasons 2 and on because it's hard for me to keep up with watching more of these episodes all the time and doing more reviews of them. And I'll keep ending up getting behind, and there might be like weeks before between a couple episodes, and I don't want to keep doing that. And at this point, I feel like this is a series I probably could react to at this point. I definitely still stand by my choice to have watched it on my own time at first here, but I think we could react to it going forward, and I think it'll help. So when I can get it into a slot, we can get to The Boys season 2, but I don't know when that's going to be. Um, we'll just have to figure that out. It might not be for a little while still, which is going to suck, but I'm going to try to get it into a slot as soon as possible. But obviously, I can't promise anything, and I'm not going to like try to like give any kind of time frame for that. Um, so yeah. But we will be reacting to it for the future. So this will be the last episodic review for The Boys. And starting in, like I said, starting in season 2, we'll just start reacting to it. I'm very excited to see more of this, though. I really enjoyed this show, honestly, more than I thought I would. So glad to be doing it. And if you have any thoughts, or again, if I forgot to mention anything in this episode, in these episodes, which I probably did, please feel free to bring it up if you want to know my thoughts on it. And thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.